I'll just clip our segment talking about that game and put it next week as well.
All right.
All righty. Give it a couple more seconds. People want to hop on, they can, and then we'll go ahead and get going. All right, welcome back to another live episode of Two Guys Talking Sports. It is a little less than a week away from Christmas, so we hope everybody's having a good holidays with their friends and family. Get all your shopping done. Sit back and enjoy a good episode of talking some college football with Steven and myself. College football playoffs begin on Friday, tomorrow, and then we're also going to dive into the Citrus Bowl between the South Carolina Gamecocks and the Illinois Fighting Illini. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start with our favorite team, the South Carolina Gamecocks, traveling to Disney World in Orlando, Florida to take on, like I said, the Illinois Fighting Illini. Kickoff is scheduled for December 31st, 3 p.m. on ABC. As we are doing this episode, as of right now, South Carolina is a 9.5 point favorite. Over under set at 47.5. There's a lot. I feel like there's a lot riding on this game for both teams, Steven. Both teams looking for win number 10 on the season. The Gamecocks looking for their first double-digit win season since 2013. In terms of the grand scheme of things in college football, the way it is now, it's not a playoff game. So some people just, on the grand scheme national level, don't really care too much about these games. But if you're going to label it, it's probably like the bowl game that is non-college football playoff related. South Carolina, one of the hottest teams coming into this game, winner of 6 in a row. Illinois also won 3 in a row. I've scored 38 points in all 3 games, 38, 38, 38. Now, granted, the teams they played are a lot different than the Gamecocks. It's come out past couple of days. Kyle Kennard is opting out of the bowl game. Today, Rocket Sanders declared for the draft, still kind of up in the air if he's going to play. We don't know. We don't know about Nick Eamon-Warry. So still a lot of unknowns that could happen between now and next. When's the 31st?
It's on a Tuesday.
So a lot can happen between now and, a week and a half from now. But Steven, kind of give us your thoughts on this game.
I really don't know a whole lot about Illinois, but honestly surprising that South Carolina got this game, especially with all the hoopla between Alabama, South Carolina, Ole Miss. Were they going to get into the playoffs? If they didn't, who was going to be the one to get this game? And for the longest time, it looked like if Alabama didn't get into the playoffs, they were pretty much going to get the Citrus Bowl. And then when South Carolina pops up, I think pretty much everybody was kind of surprised. Well, not really like shocked, surprised, but
yeah,
We knew there was a chance, but just the way that people were talking about Alabama, pretty much it was, if they don't get the playoffs, they're getting the next best thing, which would be the
Mhm.
Citrus Bowl.
Yeah.
And they didn't, because I think that outside of the idiots on the playoff committee, the people that run the Citrus Bowl can say, hey, you're going to give us the hottest team in the country to play at our bowl game? Sure. Of course, we're going to take that.
Yeah.
So
And another thing I believe they take into account is you rewind the tape back a couple of years ago where South Carolina played Notre Dame in the Gator Bowl. And I mean, honestly, I remember when I was like 10 or 11, I went to the Outback Bowl the second time South Carolina beat Ohio State. And back in the early part of 2000, of the century, people actually went to bowl games. It was very rare when they were not sold out. There was never, stadiums did not like tarp off or close off certain sections because they couldn't sell tickets. But you see a lot of that now, and you can equate that to ticket prices being very high, technology with TVs nowadays, or there's that experience. I believe it's in LA or Texas or Vegas, where it's like it feels like you're at the stadium.
yeah.
So I just feel like as technology's kind of progressed and gotten better, people tend to not go to those games because it's expensive. And but when South Carolina played Notre Dame a couple years ago, that stadium was just about sold out. And so I think that's a factor they took in. And again, as you mentioned, we're the hottest team in football right now. And I think people know outside, like you said, the committee know we're a better football team than Alabama and Ole Miss. Now we can argue all we want to about the playoffs.
Yeah.
It is what it is. They just couldn't look past the head-to-head matchup. It is what it is. But those people at the Citrus Bowl knew, this is a matchup we want. And, South Carolina and Illinois are kind of in the same scenario. We're coming off disappointing seasons. Brett Bielema, however you pronounce his last name, has some experience with SEC play, was the head coach at Arkansas for a few years, has kind of revamped his career at Illinois. I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup. The quarterback for Illinois started his career at Ole Miss, so that's something we have to look out for. And again, I don't stress too much about not having Kyle Kennard, but again, we're gonna have to depend heavily on the defensive tackles, because I think they're just going to double team Dylan Stewart maybe the entire game. So who knows? It's, as of now, we don't think anybody else is not opting out. And another thing is South Carolina's got a new offensive coordinator. That's changed since the last time I believe we've spoken. Yeah.
Technically.
Listen,
you can, if you believe the rumors or not, I do think that Shula, the last 6 games, was more involved. You can even hear in some of the clips that the media team puts out where Beamer's talking directly to Mike on certain offensive possessions. Now, whether that is, hey, I don't want to bother him, now I'm drawing a blank on his name now. No, offensive coordinator.
Loggins,
yeah. I don't know if Beamer just didn't want to bother him in the middle of thinking about plays and just wants to relay stuff through Mike, but obviously, you're getting a offensive coordinator that's been there with the players. He's been in the system. They know him. He knows them. And it's not like he's just some bum. I mean, he did coach, call plays for an MVP that went to the Super Bowl, and Cam Newton, who is a player who fits that kind of style that Lenore Sellers had. So with that hire, could you have, taken your time and maybe gone and got some other young, hot offensive coordinator? Maybe. But you've got a coordinator that is experienced, he's successful, and he knows the players and the players know him and they trust each other. So I like the hire, honestly.
No, I think we both agree. I think it's a great hire. And one thing we should know this, this is our third offensive coordinator. Beamer has a type. He has a system that he wants to run. And the great thing about I think it started this season is that position that Shula was in as an analyst wasn't really able to do anything up until this year.
Right.
So when Dow got the OC position, he asked Beamer, and Beamer even said this when he introduced Shula yesterday, is Dow Loggins wanted him. And listen, I know we gave Dow Loggins a lot of crap. I think he did a heck of a job this year.
He did.
I don't think it was just Shula calling the plays. Now, I think Shula was very instrumental in developing Lenore Sellers as the season progressed.
I think a lot of Loggins,
just his ability to talk to him and relate to him and being on the field, I think that worked wonders with them. And then Loggins got comfortable.
Yeah.
And they got comfortable with each other in calling the plays.
I think that them actually respecting each other, because maybe last year when it was wide receiver coach and Loggins, they didn't really
that was Step and Satterfield.
Right. But we kind of had that deal where our OC just they want to run their thing. They don't kind of want outside. And there was some chatter. Now we don't know who it was with, but last year there was some chatter like, this is what Loggins wants to run. It's kind of his, like he's not really taking any kind of advice. But it seems like that wasn't the case this year. And maybe I
think it was
that he was taking advice.
Well, I think, you know, and obviously
kind of switched up in the middle of the year.
But I really think after maybe that Ole Miss game, I think Beamer lit into him. And
I think some of that is, like we talked about last year, was why does it take us so long to realize this is not working? Let's change something. And I think that this year was like, okay, we realize it's not working. We're changing it now. We're not waiting until game 9. This is game 5. We still got a chance to do something with the season, change it up, either listen to these guys or we'll make a change with you. And I think that Loggins started listening, and then they can kind of learn from each other and grow. And it's worked out for everybody.
And I think he just got more comfortable with Sellers as he developed and progressed. Let's not forget, I mean, he was a redshirt freshman, but I mean, he's technically a true freshman. Right. And we didn't have the easiest of schedules. So, but something clicked. And it's, I mean, shoot, man, we have been humming ever since then. But I'm very curious. You know, will I be upset if we lose this game? Yes. Do I want to win this game? Yes. But I think it's an opportunity, especially if Rocket Sanders doesn't play, to potentially see our running back of the future for the next couple of years. I know Caleb asked if we're getting the transfer, one of the transfer running backs from Alabama, the Haynes kid. I mean, who knows? Like I feel with you know, reading message boards and everything. It's just so hard to tell with transfers, because it's not about developing a relationship like you do in high school recruiting, where you're recruiting these kids for 2 to 3 years at some point. And yes, they probably recruited these kids when they were in high school, but now with the portal, it's more so, okay, is this system a right fit for me? Yes. Okay. How much are you willing to pay me?
And what we also know with Beamer, and also a big reason why Dabo has never really used the portal, is he's not going to guarantee you any kind of starting job.
No.
You know, I honestly, I think that Oscar Attaway is a very capable, good back who shows a lot of skill, a lot of the skills that, you know, Rocket Sanders has. And if you just give him an opportunity, he could be that type of player. Yeah. And so I don't think that Beamer's just going to tell the Haynes kid, like, hey, oh yeah, from day one, you're our RB1. Like, no, we're going to run a 2-back system, and, you know, you may can come in and earn the starting position, but we're not going to promise you anything.
Yeah. And that's, you know, when people were yelling this from the mountaintops this year, where, you know, we didn't go out and find a more than I believe it was after the LSU game, after, you know, Ashford played the second half, where we didn't go out and try to get a more than capable backup, which we did, but these players also want to guarantee being a starter, and that's just not how it works. But a couple keys to the game for me for South Carolina is obviously Lenore Sellers. I mean, I think that's a given. I would love to see getting the receivers involved more, like Mazio Bennett. Let's see, what Nick Harbor can do some more. The tight ends is kind of iffy. We don't know if Joshua Simon's going to play or not. I would imagine he is.
Yeah.
But we've also lost 2 to the portal already. And those guys didn't really contribute on a like a huge level, but you're just now getting in the depth, part of the game. Caleb, that linebacker, I believe, I think they were from Grambling. Correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen.
Grambling.
That was a huge get. And
co-defensive player of the year in their conference.
I think it's the SWAC.
And look, the SWAC. Here's the thing: is like Beamer's taking those guys like Knight, and it was like, okay, who is this guy that we picked up? And then now all of a sudden, like he's one of the best players on the team.
Yeah.
I mean, they're very, and that's going to help in these portal gets because they see these players like, okay, Kyle Kennard, he was a very good player, but it wasn't like a national name before this past year. And a lot of that is playing on the other side of a guy who's just an absolute freak of nature as a true freshman.
Sterling Lucas. Yeah, I think Kyle Kennard, because he won, was it the Nagurski Award for like best D lineman, I believe.
Yeah.
One thing he mentioned was, I guess when he got to South Carolina and him and Sterling Lucas were looking at film from his previous season. He's like, listen, if you'd have just did this, you'd have so many more sacks.
Right.
And Sterling Lucas is a guy from the NFL that has come in and, Beamer even mentioned this yesterday. I mean, we had a couple assistants on staff that passed up some technically promotions. And so
that news kind of went under the rug too, that a lot of people haven't talked about, is that board meeting where we had 10 contract.
I think just about everybody got a pay raise.
I think
it's very well
much keeping everyone besides Dow, and which you're just replacing him with someone who's already on staff.
Yeah. And I mean, Dow's taking some of the assistants, lower
grad assistants.
But Caleb, that lineman we got from Wake Forest, and hopefully, I think we had the center from Michigan in this past week or last weekend. So hopefully, we secure the interior of the offensive line. We've got the outside with the tackles.
Yeah.
The interior is a big area of need because we're losing the center, the right guard, and maybe the left guard. I don't know. So I think South Carolina wins this game. I think it's going to be I don't know. I really don't know what to expect because it's Big Ten football. So it's not flashy where they just want to run the ball, but it's you just never know. And I mean, you look at, I feel like Illinois is kind of similar to Clemson in a way where, they beat the teams they were supposed to, but when they play teams more superior than them, i.e. Penn State and Oregon, they lose. So, Illinois kind of got a similar schedule where they're playing 2 teams that were in the college football playoff. South Carolina, had one, maybe Clemson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause Alabama, Ole Miss didn't make it. So, I mean, I think it's going to be a really good game. And
what I want to see is a little bit of growth from Lenoir's in the passing game. And Shula talked about that. He was in his press conference. He was like, look, as great as those runs are that he made, there were open receivers, and that's just going to come with growth. That's not a knock on him.
Yeah.
That's just going to come with some growth and him having 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Under Shula, kind of working on that. Just again, as amazing as those runs are, and as that get you hyped up and everything, so will those down the field passes that are big time plays as well. So the thing is, you don't want him truly in the long run doing as much running as he had to do, because we've seen it with Cam Newton. Your body can only take so much of those hits.
And also, I think Cam Newton really wasn't treated like a quarterback in the NFL because. Just imagine if the way he was hit sometimes, if that was Patrick Mahomes, they would have they would have
roughing the
banned
passer.
the player from playing again.
Yeah.
So I think it changed a little bit because he was so, the NFL's never really seen a quarterback with that size and his ability to move like he did. Levi brings up a good point. I think with South Carolina situations a little different because you've got Mike Shula, who is a former SEC head football coach. He was at Alabama. He had all that success as an NFL offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach with the Panthers. I guess you could say he technically developed Cam Newton, and then he went and worked with Josh Allen in Buffalo. So he's got a pretty big track record of doing what he's doing now compared to, when Clemson lost Jeff Scott, Tony Elliott, and Brenton Venables. Dabo promoted from within. And unfortunately, it didn't work out on the offensive side. I feel like the defense is still kind of up in the air because they've just got so many good athletes on that defense. I know Clemson fans have a couple gripes with Goodwin, but we'll get to. I saw a quote from Garrett Riley we're going to talk about when we discuss the Clemson game.
I think the thing with Shula too is that Lenores is extremely comfortable with him, and I think that Shula played a big role in his growth in the middle of the season.
Oh yeah.
From what I've read is that Beamer did take, he asked Sellers about it, like, what do you think? Like, would you be good with this? And I think that he was very pro Shula. Yes,
pro Shula.
This is who I want to work with because, technically he's got 2 more years that he could. Well, really,
he
3
can leave
more
next
years.
Year. Who are you talking about?
Sellers.
No, he can leave next year
because of the
he redshirts. So I think you have to be 3 years removed.
So he needs about 2 more years though, unless he just comes out and balls out and wins the Heisman or something like that.
Listen,
he'll be a front runner.
If they tell him next year, hey, listen, you're probably going to be a top 4 pick, take it. Now if he's like a 3rd, 4th round grade, don't do that.
Yeah.
But if they're like, listen, you're a top 10 pick, we're probably going to be looking for another quarterback.
But again, even outside of Sellers, like this is the type of offense they want to run.
Yep.
This is the type of player in Sellers that they want to have.
Yep.
And like you said, Shula's worked with Cam Newton, Josh Allen, like that's the kind of system that he runs, type of player he has. So if that's what you want to do, just keep going with that guy.
Yeah. And Shula's the son of legendary head football coach Don Shula. So a lot of I like the hire. And again, it's the type of offense Shane Beamer wants to run. It's the type of offense, and that's something that I've read. I can't remember who it was. Maybe JC, I think Schubert with the Big Spur, where that type of offense is not really ran or taught that much at the collegiate level, and you see kids struggle with it when they get to the NFL. So that's one thing that kind of attracts players to our program because, especially at the quarterback position. So we'll see. I think South Carolina wins. I think it's going to be a good game. But I just think we're too strong of an opponent. I'm not going to do SEC Big Ten. I just think that's stupid. But yeah, I've got South Carolina winning this game. What about you? Okay.
Yeah, South Carolina winning. I want to see, again, big takeaways for me is Lenores through the air a little bit more. Our receivers, because I think that towards the end of the year, you saw a lot more receivers getting a lot more comfortable with Sellers and with them. And then now you've got 2 weeks. You got 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks that they've been able to work with each other. Almost a month, really, that they've been able to work. So, and then Oscar Attaway, if Rocket doesn't play. And again, here's the thing: is like Kyle Kennard not playing. A lot of people get upset with that, but like you can't blame this guy for making a business.
No,
like he's not gonna bolster his draft stock by playing in this game any. Somebody like, and I don't even think like Nick Emmanwori, he wouldn't really bolster his draft stock either. Now Rocket Sanders may. If he can come out, catch some passes, get a 100-yard game, because really he just started coming on kind of after that Alabama game. So it was kind of back of the season, back into the season that he started really showing out. So for him to show, hey, I'm still doing it. that could potentially help him. But
Yeah.
again, in the long run, I don't think anybody's really going to bolster their draft stock by playing in this game. I
No,
want
it
them
can
all to
only
play
hurt.
though.
Yeah. So, but again, we've got plenty of time to get ready. It's, like I said, we played Clemson the last weekend in November, so we got plenty of time. Speaking of Clemson, we'll get started with the college football playoffs. This will not be the first game played. Clemson will take on the Texas Longhorns Saturday, December 21st, kickoff scheduled for 4 p.m. It's a little different. The kickoff or the game is going to be on TNT. You heard that right, folks, TNT. And honestly, man, if this game was at a neutral site, I would probably pick Clemson to win. I'm not even lying to you. I feel like Texas is kind of similar to Clemson, where they both kind of benefited from easier schedules. You can argue about the automatic bid with Clemson. Clemson 9-3 really doesn't have, outside the ACC championship game, a marquee win. In the regular season, the teams that they played that had somewhat of a pulse that we knew were either equal to or better than Clemson, they lost. Georgia, Louisville, South Carolina. And another thing for Clemson is I don't know if they really have a running game. Phil Maffa, I don't know how healthy he's going to be. His backup is out. I think he tore his ACL in the ACC championship game. So I think this game's solely going to rely or be on the shoulders of Cade Klubnik. And the thing with Texas is, you can say what you want about their offense. They've got a dang good defense.
Yeah.
I was listening to Josh Pate's show on YouTube where Clemson is one of the top teams in the country with explosive plays on offense. Texas's defense is one of the top teams, if not the top team, in preventing explosive plays. They don't give up a lot of yards on the run, on the ground. So I think this is going to have to be a game where this is on Cade Klubnik. I mean, this is his time to shine. You can say what you want about him, the season he had, and, you can talk about all the numbers, but when you played some of the teams he did, he should have those numbers. But when it comes down to it, in the big time games, he sometimes shows up, sometimes he doesn't. So what Cade Klubnik are they going to get on Saturday afternoon? That's the kicker for me. And I don't know.
No, I don't think anybody knows how this game's going to go, because both of these teams, they've pretty much, like you said, they've had the same kind of season where they beat the teams they should have beat. They didn't beat the teams that were competitive. Clemson's offense is just like, what are you going to get? You don't know. You truly don't know, because at times this year, and again, it was against kind of lower competition teams. At one point, Cade was top 5 in the Heisman odds this season. And then it kind of faltered. And then you got a game where Phil Maffa goes for 230 yards. And then you got a game where he has 15 carries for 15 yards. You just you don't know. I will say that both of these teams, I think the only thing that is consistent for both of these teams is their defense. They do have the common opponent in Georgia. That common opponent has been very inconsistent this year as well. So it's really hard to pick this game.
Yeah,
I would say the only maybe the only thing that Texas has going for them is it is in Texas.
Yeah.
This is truly a home game. It's not a neutral site. I'm not sure. I haven't really kept up with who has had any kind of portal entries. If so, it's not anybody that's kind of
No, Clemson's lost a couple to the portal, but they're backups. It's nothing.
And here's
crazy.
the thing that I don't understand with that. Like, I get it as a personal decision. You gotta try and get in the portal as soon as possible, but also you're in the playoffs. Like, you could potentially win a national championship. Like, I think I would give it 3 or 4 weeks at this. If you're not playing now, like
I think
the teams that you would go to. If you're a team like Clemson or Texas and you're hitting that portal, like the teams that you would go to, they're probably still going to be around in 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah. I just think they need to delay the portal opening until after the regular or after everything is done.
It's the
They need
same
to
way
see
with
to
the
have
N-
one. They
NFL.
need
Like
to have one window, and it needs to be after the spring game.
it needs to be, or yeah, the NFL, nothing can be done. Nobody can do free agency or anything until the Super Bowl has ended. And then I think it's even like a week after that
I
where
think the
you have like
league
the
year doesn't start
tampering.
till like May.
Yeah, you have like the tampering period and you have all that, whatever that crap is.
Yeah.
But anyway, you can't do any, like, you can't leave your team
Mhm.
until, even if you're out, you
Yeah.
can't leave your team until everybody else is done.
Yeah, and that's the backup quarterback for Penn State. I mean, he's in the portal. And
Bro, you're
again, I
the
think
backup. Like, one snap, you could be playing in the playoffs and
yeah,
potentially in the national championship in one snap.
but at the same time, it's it's something where there's 11 other teams that are in it, and most of them have quarterbacks, and you got to be able to get it while you can, I guess.
Yeah.
But if I'm Texas, I'm utilizing Arch Manning. I mean, his ability to run the ball, use the formula South Carolina did with Lenore Sellers against Clemson. I don't know. I mean, Tennessee, Texas is almost a 2-touchdown favorite over Clemson. I just, with as good as Texas defense is, and the kind of the inexperience for the receivers for Clemson, two of their best ones are true freshmen. Texas is in the college football playoff for 2 years, and this is their second. They're back in it. They were in it last year, lost to Washington, and I've got Texas winning this game. I think it's going to be a good game, but just
I think it's going to be an ugly game.
I mean, it very well could be. I mean,
I think there's going to be turnovers. I think it's going to be.
I would hammer the under. The over under set at 51.5.
Oh hell yeah! Yeah, no, it ain't going that high. But yeah, I got Texas winning this one for sure. Tell Bryce to stay out.
The niece, the brother and sister-in-law and the nieces are in town. Yeah, so yeah, so it's going to be. I think it's going to be a really good game.
Real quick, you mentioned Arch Manning, and I kind of saw this out on Twitter. If Quinn Ewers comes back, there's like a rumor or theory that Arch Manning's going to dip out and go play for Bill Belichick at North Carolina. No, you don't see that?
Quinn Ewers is going to be the one that transfers.
Or go in the NFL draft.
Yeah, because I've heard I've heard some teams in the Big Ten have offered him a good chunk of change. And I think Mel Kiper even came out and said, like, listen, if this is your grade, just stay in college and transfer. Because I think we know that it's only a matter of not if, but when Arch Manning is the quarterback.
Here's the thing: is like when Arch just came in, when he comes in, he hasn't been like this. Oh my God, he's so much better.
But he's also, you give him a full season as the starter, like a Lenore Sellers, with his ability to run, Steve Sarkisian as the offensive coordinator and head coach. I just think, I think Quinn transfers or goes pro.
Somebody's gone.
Yeah, and it's not going to be Arch. It's not going to be Arch Manning. It's not.
TJ's definitely going.
I don't think North Carolina can offer him the amount of money he's making at Texas. Zayden, I'll touch on this before we move on.
Yeah.
Zayden asked, do you think TJ Sanders will go to the NFL draft? Zayden, I think the big thing is where his draft grade is.
Does he have another year?
Yeah. I mean, from everything that I've heard, I mean, he has done nothing but shoot up those draft boards.
Yeah.
And Levi, come on, man. I mean, but Zane, to answer your question, I think it all depends where because I think what can happen is these kids get draft grades at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And I mean, honest to God, dude, if he's a first or second round projection, you got to go. You got to go. Yeah. I mean, you understand, like, with money wise, it's sometimes the smarter decision to stay in college. But also at the same time, if you know your draft stock's not going to improve that much, especially as a defensive lineman, you got to go. I mean,
Yeah.
you gotta get it while you can. And yeah, I mean, he's done nothing but shoot up the draft boards. I don't think Quinn Ewers is going back to Ohio State. I've heard Michigan State. It's really whoever's going to throw him the most money. I mean,
Right.
shoot, dude, he could go to Oregon. I don't know. So we'll see. But I'm gonna have Texas winning this game. I just think another big thing, and this was maybe an advantage for Clemson in the ACC championship game, and you saw that especially at the beginning of the game. That coaching staff for SMU I don't think they prepared their team that well. Because Clemson, I mean, SMU gifted Clemson 21 points in the first quarter, and that was enough to get them over the line to win the ACC championship. So we'll see. It's an away game, but I think it's not really like in terms of how everything is done around the video boards and everything. I don't know. It's weird the way they've done it. So, but I'm going Texas.
Yeah.
And let's move on to Indiana and Notre Dame in the matchup of I don't really give a crap about this game. I'm going to watch it because I love college football. Kickoff is scheduled Friday night, so tomorrow night. Kickoff scheduled for 8 p.m. on ABC. As of right now, Notre Dame is a touchdown favorite, 7.5 points. Over under at 52.5 points. This is a game of question marks for me, man. I'm going to be honest with you. Illinois, kind of similar to a lot of teams, didn't really play a strong regular season schedule. The one team they played that was better than them, they lost to, and that was Ohio State. Notre Dame, they had the big win at the beginning of the year over Texas A&M. Now at the end of the season, that's not so much of as impressive win as you would think it is. Then the very next week, they lose to Northern Illinois, and when we've seen Notre Dame in the playoffs, and when it was four teams, they always laid an egg. I mean, whether it's them playing Clemson, I think they may have played Clemson. I can't remember. I know they played Alabama, and it was just they had no business being there. And I think this is the exact same way. This is the exact same way I feel now. They benefit from being Notre Dame. They benefit from not playing in a conference, even though they technically play like an ACC schedule, but they still are under that title of an independent. I think these are two teams that did not deserve to be in the playoffs, but they benefited from having a weak regular season schedule, and that's where we're at. I think, I mean, it's at Notre Dame. I don't know. I honest to God, man, I don't know. I think Indiana could win. I think Notre Dame can win. That's about as much as I got. You got a cocky coach in Kirk Cignetti. Marcus Freeman just received a huge pay increase and extension. I don't know.
I think it's Notre Dame. I don't think it's a blowout either way. I think it's one of these boring. It's going to be a boring game. But I'm gonna go with Notre Dame. I feel like Notre Dame is in the back half of the season, even though they haven't played anybody.
Yeah,
they've kind of did what they should do to these teams, which Indiana has too. So again, it's two teams that nobody cares that they're in it. And I think that's why. Hey, and I think that's why they put them on their own night. It's just like, all right, let's just get this game out of the way because nobody's gonna be like clamoring to watch this game. So at least if we put them on by themselves, we know that we're going to get viewers because it is the playoffs.
Yeah,
people are going to watch it because it's the playoffs and it's the only one.
Yeah,
it's going to be a boring game, and Notre Dame's going to win it by a field goal from there. And you know what? Here's the other thing with Notre Dame. And we kind of said that with like the whole Juice Wells thing, sorry to bring it back to South Carolina, that Mitch Jeter, correct, was a bigger loss than Juice Wells, but he's been not good this year. Like he's 50% on his field goals, outside of PATs, but he hasn't been good this year. But he'll probably make a game-winning field goal.
I agree.
Whatever. Nobody cares. Notre Dame.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a good game. Again, I'm going to watch it because it's college football and it's the playoffs. I wish
the only thing this game is going to be, it's going to be two teams that at the end of the game, somebody's going to win, and all the media is going to be like, South Carolina should have been in here. Alabama should have been in here. Neither one of these teams deserved to be in the playoffs. You can see it because they both suck, and it's just boring football.
And what's crazy is the winner of this game plays Georgia, and it came out a little bit ago. Carson Beck's not going to be playing in that matchup.
Crazy.
Yeah, which honestly
benefits Georgia because even with a backup quarterback, like they've got a good defense, they got good running backs, they got good receivers, they got everything around a backup quarterback.
Solid. I mean, Gunnar Stockton's a solid option. I mean, Georgia didn't lose much on offense in that second half of the SEC championship game.
No.
It just sucks because the way Carson Beck went down, it's what happened to Brock Purdy a couple years ago in the playoffs. But yeah, I'm going to go with Indiana. I mean, it's a 10-7 matchup in the grand scheme of things. I'm going the Hoosiers. I like Cignetti. I like the little bit of the cockiness. It's also, I'm just sick of the Notre Dame.
I agree.
Love fest. It's absolutely insane. It's a team that never does anything to benefit from being in this position every year, but they're consistently ranked preseason top 10 or 5 because they're Notre Dame, and that's it. Like,
here's the thing: if they lose this game, next year they'll start out the season top 5.
It's how it is.
No matter who they get, no matter who they recruit, no matter who's on their schedule, they will be top 5 next year, no matter what happens in this game.
Yep. I mean, I like Notre Dame, but I'm just, when it comes to determining who the best teams are, I just don't think they're one of them. And when they get in, there's always controversy surrounding them in terms of did they deserve to be in this game? And everybody argues they do, but when they play in the game, they always get their butts cut. Like people argued till they're blue in the face about Clemson half a decade ago. But guess what? They won. Like, if you just win and you shut up everybody, but Notre Dame doesn't win when they're in these games. So I'm going Indiana. Let's jump in. 2 more, Southern or SMU at Penn State. This is an interesting matchup. It is scheduled. Come on.
Nobody cares to watch these teams, man.
This is scheduled for Saturday, December 21st, kickoff at noon on TNT. And what's crazy, Stephen, is I think the temperature at kickoff is scheduled to be like 25 degrees or projected to be 25 degrees. SMU has played in I was listening to Josh Payton earlier. I think average temperature for an SMU game is like 75 degrees. So how do they handle? Did they learn from their mistakes against Clemson in that first quarter? And another thing I want to see from Penn State, they're favored by 8.5, is they showed the ability against Oregon to pass the ball. So will they do the same thing? Because there's this aura, or I don't know the term I'm trying to think of, but there's like this stigma around James Franklin. Can he win the big game? Because he really hasn't.
I mean, even if he wins this one, sure, he won a playoff game, but this ain't no. Going back to the weather real quick, SMU, when they were playing Clemson for the ACC championship game, they posted this graphic about like the ACC championship game. It was a freaking blizzard in a mountain scape, like if they were about to climb Mount Everest or something. Brother, it was 50 degrees. Yeah. It was like 50 or 60 degrees that night. Like,
it was pretty cold that night. I think it was like
there was no chance of a freaking blizzard coming in.
It was cold because it was cold here in Dillon that night. Yeah, so it was cold.
They're about to experience cold, and it potentially could be snowy or something like that. Who knows? Yeah. But I guess Penn State.
Yeah, I'm going to go Penn State as well, just for the fact that I don't know. Should SMU be in the game? I don't know. They lost in the big moment against Clemson. They crapped the bed, whatever you want to call it. Can they rebound? Because, like I said, I do think SMU was the better team over Clemson. But I think one thing that benefited Clemson in the ACC championship game was the caliber of the coaching staff, and having Dabo Swinney. My nose is itching so bad. But having that experienced coaching staff goes a long way in these games. And I just don't think SMU has it. And, Brett Lachey, is saying, "Oh, they'll be ready." Well, we'll find out and see because it's coming in less than 2 days, less than 48 hours. So we'll see. I'm going to go with Penn State.
I'm
Um,
gonna go with Penn State too
I think that the next one,
because it's
Tennessee.
a Penn State because it's a more experienced coaching staff that even though they don't have a great track record in winning these big games, they have been there,
Yeah,
and it's in Penn State. And SMU already thought that Charlotte was a freaking Mount Everest when it came
it
to
was.
temperature.
It
So
was.
I think
You
that
know,
truly this is a game where weather can play a factor because these. And unless SMU like goes up to Pennsylvania a week before to just try and acclimate themselves to that temperature, like if they stay in Texas and it does get cold in Texas,
yeah,
but again, their average, like you
not
said,
like
their
it
average
does in
temperature,
Pennsylvania.
no, not even close. But
They
if
get-
I was SMU, I would find me a high school field somewhere and put my team in a hotel nearby, and I would practice there and try and acclimate myself to the weather.
I'll just stick them in the freezer at a restaurant and make them sit in there
Yeah.
because it's cold in that thing. So yeah,
Penn State,
I
I'm going Penn State.
Yeah, I'm going Penn State as well. I think this is probably top to bottom the most intriguing matchup. Tennessee at Ohio State. There's I don't know. It's does Rondé if Ohio State loses this game, does Rondé survive at Ohio State? Does he get fired? Does he leave? For Tennessee, Nico Amaliava, how does he play? You look at his stats. I think it's kind of inflated where the majority of his numbers came against weaker opponents when they played teams that were better than them. He didn't really show up. But the one thing Tennessee has going for them is they went out in the transfer portal in the offseason last year and they shored up that defensive line. And Ohio State likes to run the ball a lot. And Tennessee's one of the best defenses in the country at stopping the run. I don't know if Michigan is just the kryptonite of Rondé, but that
Was he
offense
1-5 against him? 1-4?
he's won one time, and I, and I don't know what him and Chip Kelly were calling in that game against Michigan, but it's not going to win you a game against Tennessee. That defense is just too dang good. The only question mark for Tennessee is the offense. Their running back, I think he got shafted in some of the postseason awards because he's the best running back in the SEC, leading rusher. I don't know. I think it's going to be this is going to be a good game. Tennessee or Ohio State's a 7.5-point favorite at the time we are recording this. I'm going Tennessee. You look at the Ohio State's 2 losses this year. It's Oregon, Michigan, and it came down to quarterback play. Will Howard did not win them those games. He had the opportunity to do it against Oregon, but lack of clock management hurt him. And again, I don't know if it was just play calling against Michigan, but that was just a putrid performance. And so, I mean, it's at home, but I mean, I've read a lot where I think something happened where like the pre-sale code for Ohio State fans got leaked and Tennessee fans hopped all over it. So I don't know.
Saw that. It's just a
So
Tennessee wave of fans that are coming in.
I think Tennessee wins this game. And its kickoff is scheduled for Saturday night at 8 p.m. on ABC. The winner of this game will take on Oregon. So that's a tough matchup. The winner of the Clemson Texas game will face Arizona State, and then the winner of the SMU Penn State game will take on Boise State. But I've got Tennessee winning this game. I just think, yes, they have the 2 losses, but who do they lose to? They lost to Georgia.
Yeah.
I'm having a mind blank. Give me a second.
Oh, they beat Georgia, right?
Who did they lose to then?
Pretty sure they beat Georgia.
They lost to Arkansas and Georgia.
Okay, that Arkansas loss, that's a bad loss.
Yeah, that was a bad loss. But again, that was their 5th game of the season.
Yeah.
And so, they beat Alabama 2 weeks later. So, but again, I think it's kind of similar to the Clemson game. What Nico and Maliala shows up. Can Tennessee establish the run? Can Tennessee stop the run? So, but I'm going Tennessee on this one. Just I don't know, just what I saw from Ohio State against that Michigan game. That's just I don't know. I think
agree.
that's what Ohio State is, and you know what you're going to get from Rondé. And even if Ohio State wins, Rondé is going to somehow like I don't know. And I think with all the stuff hoopla that was going around after those rival games where teams are planting the flags on the fields and like Rondé's just sitting there looking like I'm looking at you, where his like senior defensive leader is just like
Yeah, he was
losing his
lost, dude.
mind. And he's like, what's going on? It's like, again,
You have no control over the locker room whenever you can sit there like that.
yeah. And so, there's all that old adage, he was born on third base that Jim Harbaugh said. He didn't build that program up. He inherited what Urban Meyer built. So we'll see. I mean, it's do I think they can win? Yeah, but I think you know what you're really going to get from Rondé and his football team. And I just think Tennessee with Josh Heupel and that defense, I think it's just going to be too strong for them. You just play bully football, and I think you can beat Ohio State.
I agree. Also, what's different in this game versus like the Penn State and the Clemson Texas game is this environment isn't going to shake Tennessee. Like it's nothing that they haven't seen every SEC game. Even when you go, even if I don't remember if that Tennessee Arkansas game was at Arkansas, but even teams like Arkansas, those are still tough environments that you're not getting with SMU playing Virginia Tech and Virginia. Same thing for Clemson. You're not getting that with the same way that you're getting the Texas environment, the Penn State environment. But for Tennessee going to Ohio State, weather's not going to be a factor. They're used to that. They can play in the cold. They're practicing in the cold now. The environment, as far as the amount of fans, I think Tennessee Stadium is probably bigger than Ohio State's, or
I don't
right
think
there at it.
I mean, it's not like it's 20,000 difference. It might be a couple thousand.
So them going on the road is nothing that they haven't seen in SEC play, even at teams that are kind of bottom of the SEC. So if Tennessee can just go in there and bully them, we've seen that Ohio State struggles with that, because even in the Penn State game that Ohio State won, it wasn't a high scoring game.
Yeah.
It was one of those Big Ten games, and Tennessee can play that style of football. Actually, that's probably what they're best at right now is their running back and their running game. So, I got Tennessee winning this one.
I think my only rebuttal about the atmosphere, it's you don't see this a lot in the Big Ten, and it's because of Fox NFL noon kickoff. This game's at 8:00 at night. So I truly believe the toughest places to play, that's Williams-Brice, Neyland Stadium, Death Valley for LSU and Clemson. It's very different atmospheres when you've got a noon kickoff compared to an 8 p.m. kickoff. So we don't really get to see many night games at Buckeye Stadium. So I'm very curious to see how that looks. But again, like
if the rumors are true, though, if Tennessee fans were able to get that pre-sale and they bought, if what they're saying is the amount of tickets that Tennessee fans were able to get and buy and are going, it could end up being almost like a neutral site in terms of fans being there.
But even if it's not, Tennessee's played in environments like
that. This environment isn't going to phase Tennessee.
Yeah, I agree. So just to recap, we discussed the Citrus Bowl first. That game is scheduled for New Year's Eve, 3 p.m. kickoff on ABC between the South Carolina Gamecocks and the Illinois Fighting Illini. The college football playoffs do start tomorrow. That's going to be tomorrow night between Indiana at Notre Dame. Kickoff scheduled for 8 p.m. on ABC. They'll start back Saturday afternoon for SMU Penn State, 12 p.m. on TNT. Clemson, Texas, 4 p.m. TNT. And then we'll cap it off with Tennessee, Ohio State, Saturday night, 8 p.m. on ABC. Steven, I'm excited. It's 12-team playoff. We got another 4 weeks of college football.
Boring teams in there.
Yeah, I know. I'd love to see South Carolina, but again, just don't lose the games we did. But this will be our last college episode before Christmas, maybe. Or do you maybe want to try to do something?
TBD.
We'll round table it back.
TBD.
Yeah, and
depends on how these games go. If we got some slobber knockers to talk about,
Yeah.
Sure. If we got a bunch of boring games,
Yeah, we'll see. Either way, we'll have something coming out. We'll have our high school awards episodes rolling out here in the next week and two, and after the new year. So, got a lot of stuff planned. Thank y'all for tuning in. I think everybody's off the video. And if we don't see y'all before Christmas, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year's. Stay safe. And Steven, cheers.
Go change some diapers.
Yeah. That's not my job. I couldn't even put together a pack and play.